All right, good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Today we are going to be talking about buyer consults. First of all, can everybody hear me? I'm using a microphone and sometimes it doesn't connect. Can you hear me? Somebody unmute, say you can hear me.
I can hear you. I hear you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, that is there we go. All right, anyways, welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about buyer consults. I think Randy told me that Mark might have a solar guy coming in. So since they're not here yet, maybe we can wait until the end for that. Maybe he'll come, maybe he won't, I don't know. So, but throughout this conversation this morning, if you guys have questions, if you guys want to jump in, please just unmute yourselves. This is supposed to be like a community, like let's all get together and talk shop. I want you guys to be bouncing your ideas off of me, asking questions, getting involved. This isn't just like me up here speaking, although a lot of times it ends up being. I would like it to be a conversation. So if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, stories you want to share, so I can help guide you through maybe a situation you were in that could have been better or maybe ended up a little bit awkward, let me know. Let's go over that. Let's figure it out together. All right, so buyer consults. This is something that I have been doing since the beginning of my career. In the beginning, I would do buyer consults with anybody who would meet with me about buying a house. I did them. And if you're new and don't have a lot of business going on, I 100% totally suggest that you meet with literally everybody, even if they say they have a 200 credit score, if it goes that low. I suggest you meet with them because you will be able to sharpen your tools, hone in on your skills, and actually get the practice and what it is like to be face-to-face with a buyer and give them a consultation on what it's like to purchase a home in Las Vegas. So the purpose of your buyer consults is going to be finding out their motivation. Why are they moving? What are they a first-time home buyer? Stuff like that. We want to find out what is their timeline, what are their wants and needs. We want to set expectations. And we want to match our motivation to theirs. We don't want to follow up too often and come off pushy if they're not buying for another year. We don't want to be calling them every day. And we don't want to contact them too little because then they will be more motivated than us and they will go find another agent because we're not as responsive or working as hard as somebody else. So in order to get people to these buyer consults, I do have a kind of like a script of little questions that I do ask, and this is called pre-qualifying your buyers. Okay, we always hear pre-qualify, pre-qualify, pre-qualify. Guys, if your schedule is not packed with meetings, one-on-ones with buyers and sellers all day, you don't have to pre-qualify as hard as somebody who has a ton of business and is doing 40, 50, 60 deals per year, because you have the time and you can make these relationships with people and show them that you are the professional that that they should go to for questions and stuff like that. So, but some of my pre-qualifying questions are you a first-time home buyer or do you need to sell before you move? And what I say after that, so that's going to give me my first question. That opens the conversation with the cold lead that comes in through KV Core, through Facebook, or through your OpCity or Ojo leads, any lead that comes through from any of these services. This is how I structure my conversation. So the first thing I say is, are you a first-time home buyer? Do you need to sell before you move? And then they usually say first-time home buyer. And then I say, okay, in order to help evaluate your situation, I have a few questions for you. If you have a spouse or a partner that will be purchasing with you, please answer for both parties. And usually this whole conversation is over text message or chat or whatever. And this is how I kind of just dive into the conversation in order to get them on the phone or to an appointment. This is pre-qualifying. So then I say, what do you do for a living? What's your monthly income? What's your current credit score? How much do you have saved for a down payment? And are you a veteran or are you currently on active duty? Knowing those questions will really help guide your conversation in the future with them as far as purchasing, what type of house they're looking at, what type of down payment they're looking at needing for that. So if they have a lower credit score, they have some charge-offs, they can still get pre-qualified, but they have to tell you how much they have for a down payment, because if you have some charge-offs on your credit, you can get pre-qualified, but you need 10% down, stuff like that. So little nuances that you can help guide them with. And you guys should have a lender that you are going to and have that team built around you, so that if you are newer and don't know the answers to these questions and aren't on my mentorship program and can't, don't have anybody to ask, then you can be bantering back and forth with the lender and finding out the answer to these questions to help guide your clients. So once you get them to an appointment, they're usually, they're like, okay, we're ready. We want to talk about this. We want to find out more. We don't know anything about the home buying process. You get them to appointment and you're face-to-face with them, or you get them on a Zoom, and this is your time to build rapport. Okay, this is where they're going to decide their first impression of you. Do they like you? Do they want to work with you? So build rapport. Buyer consults are the easiest and best time to do this. I like to start off with some light conversation. I usually ask them, hey, how long have you been in Vegas? Where did you move from? What brought you here? How many years have you been here? I don't just ask them questions either. I kind of make it a conversation back and forth as if we're friends. I tell them about me. I tell them I've been in Vegas for 13 years. No, I'm not a native, but it feels like I am because I've been here for so long and I've seen so many changes. And then that's another time when I'd like to display my knowledge about the city. I say, like, okay, well, I remember back when I first moved here, we didn't even have 1 million people living here. Now we have over 3. And then sometimes I go off about like how I always wanted an IKEA to be here and they wouldn't build one until we had 1 million people. So little things like that, we're bantering back and forth. And sorry, Randy keeps texting me. And I just start the conversation light. I tell them about me, they tell me about them, and we connect on different levels. So I ask them if they have any pets, what brought them to town. I tell them I moved here because I used to play poker for a living and I was out here all the time anyways. The other day I had a buyer consult with a newly engaged couple, and I built rapport just by asking them how they met and, because one of them lived in Texas, one of them lived here, and now they just got engaged last month and now they're ready to like purchase a home together. So I thought that was really exciting and really cute. So we were all on Zoom. I did record that one. And if you guys check out my YouTube channel, I have all of the buyer consults that I've done recently are all in a playlist. So if you want to go in there and see how I do buyer consults with different clients, please go ahead and check that out. I'll put the link in the chat when we're done on here. It's just good to have an example. And with people on my mentorship program, what I like to say is, go out there, get the clients, set the appointment, and I will come to the buyer consult with you. And I will, you'll be able to see how I work and how I actually build that rapport with people. Turning my phone on do not disturb. That's annoying. All right. Then after I go through and start building that little rapport with them, I like to kind of dive into and make a transition by asking them, what are your biggest fears about purchasing? Okay, so first-time home buyers, they may have a lot of fears. It's usually with first-time home buyers, it's about the money. That's their biggest fear. So when you know a client's biggest fear about purchasing this property, you know how to guide the conversation to have them overcome their fears and actually pull the trigger on making offers on homes. This is super important to note and write down in your CRM what their biggest fears are. So like I said, you know how to guide them through the sale and help them overcome that. And then I just like to mix it up and ask them, what are they most excited about, to get them excited again and out of that headspace where they're scared. When you do talk about anything, you can influence people's emotions. And this is what I like to teach within my program, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So it's all about the sales. It's all about how to help guide people towards avoiding that fear. People will do so much more to avoid fear than they will to gain pleasure. You guys really need to remember that. So know what their fears are and help them overcome them, or help ease their fears about anything that they're scared of. Will really help them actually pull the trigger on making offers on homes. Next, I kind of like to go into their timeline. We want to match our motivation to our client's motivation. It's probably one of the most important things you can do in this process in order not to come off too pushy, and in order not to contact them so little that they go with another agent, or another agent swoops in. Maybe they're like looking on Zillow and you haven't followed up with them in like 2 weeks, and then they type in their information and another agent contacts them, and then they get that sale. That's happened to me before. You need to match their motivation, your motivation to theirs. We kind of want to be in that Goldilocks zone. Don't contact them too much. Don't contact them too little. Each client doesn't buy and sell a home as often as you do. So you have to tailor your approach to their wants and needs versus them doing it to your processes. Does that make sense to everybody? Does anybody have any questions so far? No. All right. Well, like I said, basically there's 2 ways that it can go wrong. You can be more motivated than the client, or you can not be as motivated as them, and both of them will result in a bad ending and experience for both of you. So kind of the questions that you can ask in order to find out their timeline and their motivation. Say that their lease is up in 3 months, and you ask, well, what would happen if you found the perfect home in the next 30 days? Are you ready to make an offer? This is also something that I use to prompt them to get pre-approved, because if somebody has a lease that's up in like 5 months, let's say, obviously pre-approvals are good for about 90 days, but they can really be revamped and revived at any time. So I like to tell people, oh, you're so smart for talking to me about this now. So I always compliment them, make them feel like they're doing the right thing, because now is the time to get your finances in order. 5 months before you actually pull the trigger and make the purchase. We need the lender to look at your credit. We need the lender to look at your income. We need the lender to get all of the documents together. And if there's something that we can do for you to help you get a better interest rate, or, shop around and make sure you're getting the best deal, now is the time. We need all of this time in order to do that. So that's kind of the threshold, is 5 months. Is when I actually like to get them pre-approved, because if somebody says they have a 650 credit score and they're looking at Credit Karma, what does that say? Does anybody know the little speed bump you might hit there? Credit Karma uses a different credit system in order to come up with that credit score. It is not your FICO score. Okay, lenders will look at your FICO score, and usually Credit Karma's credit score is higher than your actual credit score. So if somebody comes to me, they have great income, they have good money saved for a down, but they tell me they have a 650 credit score, and maybe they have 25,000 in the bank, and they make, 60 to 90,000 a year. That's a really good candidate. They're 5 months out. Okay, they're telling me Credit Karma says 650. I want them to fill out that mortgage application today, because their credit score might be 620, and we have 4 months to fix it in order to actually help them get pre-approved. They need to apply today, and I need the lender to help them with their credit or get them in with credit repair. So that's just a little nuance there. So after we talk about their motivation, we also, I forgot. Also, they won't have a mortgage payment for a certain amount of days. So I just closed on a home on the 14th, and they won't have a mortgage payment until June 1st. So that is another thing to keep in mind, especially for your renters, because they're like, oh, I don't want to purchase until the last minute because I don't want to be paying a mortgage and a lease at the same time. Definitely make them aware of the way that a mortgage is actually paid versus rent. So if you guys aren't aware of this, rent is paid for the month ahead. So rent is paid on the 1st, and you pay for the next 30 days that you're going to be there. When you pay a mortgage, you pay for the month behind, the month that you've already lived there. Oops. So that's why you don't have a mortgage payment for the next 45 days usually once somebody actually closes on a home. So that's actually good to note for your clients that are renters. So after talking about their motivation and like, oh, hey, if you find a home in the next 30 days, are you ready to actually pull the trigger? That's where we go and we kind of talk about their finances. So all of the background of what I just gave you on why it's good to know all of this stuff. Talking about their finances is definitely the next step. So I like to have my lender, if I'm doing a Zoom, I like to have my lender on the Zoom with me. And you'll see if you go and watch my YouTube that I often have Paul jump in just so we can get all of those questions answered properly and actually have somebody to bounce ideas off of and have somebody else in the conversation. So it looks like we have a whole team that's coming together to service our clients. So I like to talk about all of their finances. What is their credit score? How much they have saved for a down payment? We're basically going to go over everything that we went over to pre-qualify them, but more in detail because we're face-to-face and we've kind of built that trust and rapport up. So we want to go over their credit score, how much they have saved for a down payment, we go over what closing costs are and what they cover. We go over seller concessions. So another tip that I have is kind of neuro-linguistic programming and sales tactics is I like to say, so what I do for my buyers is I try to get the seller to pay for your closing costs. So what you're doing here is you're kind of saying like, I am an agent that will stand out because I do these extra things for my buyers. And they will appreciate that you actually try to get those closing costs from the buyers. So we can go over what seller concessions are. We can go over what rate buy downs are. We can go over the 2-1 buy down, stuff like that. And if you guys are newer and don't know all of this information, having the lender there and just prompting him and being like, hey, can you explain what a 2-1 buy down is? Hey, can you explain what, how it works with seller concessions? You can actually have that person bounce ideas off of you. Now, if you're on my team, I will go to these meetings with you and actually do that for you so you can see how I interact with the clients. You can also go into talking about how you should not make any major purchases before closing on your house. Don't go to the furniture store and open a credit line and buy a bunch of furniture. Don't buy a car. My favorite saying is, don't buy a car until you actually own the garage you're going to put it in. So make sure that they know these things because first-time home buyers especially are not going to be aware that this will affect your ability to qualify in the end. And you could last minute have the whole deal fall apart because of these things. So the goal at the end of this conversation and at the end of this buyer consult is going to be, we want them to be excited and have that sense of urgency that they should get pre-approved now, no matter how far out they are, just so that we can actually organize their finances and everything. I do want to take a moment to mention a couple books that if you're not on my mentorship program, I really think you should read. One of them is Sold. This has a lot of great things in it, a lot of scripts and the way that conversations should go. I did a lot of like highlighting in mine and everything, but these are books that really helped me in the beginning of my career and with everything from scripts to how to dress to how to, talk to your broker, how to get questions answered. And then if you're more into like learning about what to say and how to say it, there's a book called Exactly What to Say. And this is all for real estate agents. Okay. And there's a bunch of tips in here on just how to actually formulate your words in order to not sound so salesy and not be so pushy and really get to the bottom of people's wants and needs and help them along the whole process. So once we talk about motivation, once we talk about financing, now is kind of the time when the lender and can jump off of the conversation if they're on Zoom, and you kind of get into the exciting part for them, which is looking at homes. So you guys should all be on the MLS daily, just kind of searching around and seeing what different properties are going for at different prices. And you should kind of have a general knowledge of what a 3-bedroom home costs in different areas, what a 4-bedroom home and what a 5-bedroom home costs in different areas of Las Vegas. You should also know the price difference between a pool home and a not pool home in the different areas. So I would, if you're just starting to do this, I would know those different properties in the northern part of Las Vegas, like Aliante and Centennial. I would know those different properties in the Summerlin area. I would know those different properties in the Southwest area and the different property prices in Henderson area. Those are the major areas that my buyers look in. So just knowing that general data will really help you, especially in those first conversations with buyers. If they're unrealistic, you can kind of manage their expectations right away. Managing your buyers and sellers' expectations right off the bat is going to help you keep the client throughout the process. Because if you're telling somebody, if you're just the yes person, yes, let's do it, yes, this, because you feel like you'll lose a client if you tell them otherwise, you're going to let them down, and they are going to eventually look at you as not a knowledgeable professional, because they're going to get pre-approved for $300,000, and then they're going to go look for a pool home in Summerlin with 4 bedrooms, and they're going to get disappointed because you told them yes, that you can't, just because you wanted to keep that person as a client. So be real with your clients. You do not have to just tell them what they want to hear in order to keep them and get the sale. I often, especially throughout Q4 of last year, I would tell so many of my buyers, now is just not the time. I mean, we're at 8 to 9% interest rates. You don't have enough money to put down. Like, just wait until next year. Let's see what happens. Prices will come down, and it'll be a better time. And everybody that I said no to, I would say about 60% of them decided to buy anyways. So they were like, thank you for being so honest with me, but we're ready. I'm like, okay, well, let's go then. And you will actually build that trust with that client by telling them no. Don't be afraid to tell them no. So yeah, just know the market, briefly go over homes and criteria and their price range, pull up the MLS and show them. Let's go through some houses. This is the fun part, guys. This is how you get them excited and get them in that positive mindset after talking about all of the nitty-gritty things with finances and money and stuff like that. So that should conclude your buyer consult. At the end, you should get them excited about filling out that mortgage application, and you should have them set up on a search. I generally like to set them up on a search probably after they get the pre-approval, but if they're just so excited and they just want to look anyways, go ahead and set it up for them. I like to know what their price range is and what they're actually qualified for before I start sending them homes at 500 when they can only get approved for 350. And that is part of the managing the expectations part, because what's going to happen after they look at all these homes for 500 and then they only get approved for 350, they're not going to like any of them because they saw all of these beautiful homes at 500,000 and now they're looking at 350. And it's, another part of managing their expectations. So another tip is I never call it a mortgage application. I call it a mortgage questionnaire. So just this little neuro-linguistic programming, the little nuances will really help your clients pull the trigger. It doesn't sound as scary to fill out a questionnaire as it does to apply for a mortgage. Can we all agree on that? Definitely. All right, so another tip, while showing homes, every single time that I take a buyer out to show homes, my goal is to have them make an offer on at least one of them, right? That should be everybody's goal. How do you do that? After each home we go see, I take them out to the driveway, or if it's too cold or too hot, which is usually the case, we just talk inside. But I ask them to rate the home on a scale of 1 to 7. Why 1 to 7? Because if I give them a scale of 1 to 10, usually nobody picks below a 5. because I try to really hone in on what they want and need. So they shouldn't be seeing any homes that are under a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10 or under a 4 on a scale of 1 to 7. So really make sure that you're knowing your client and knowing what they like and need. If they're sending you homes that have a 2-car or 1-car garage and you know that they need RV parking, you're going to tell them, hey, by the way, I know that you want to go look at this home, but I don't think that it's going to fit your needs. Don't you have an RV? Don't you have a boat? Don't you have a ATV? Like, let's be realistic with your wants and needs. Even though it's pretty inside, I think that we should look at some other properties. Don't waste your time. Don't waste theirs. It will really help you guys in the long run. So during the pandemic, everything was moving really fast. If my clients rated a home at 5 or above on a scale of 1 to 7, we put offers in on every single home that was a 5 or above. I didn't tell them that until after we were done looking at all of the homes. But at the end, I would sit down with them and I would say, hey, look, you rated, 3 of these 5 homes at a 5. We need to put offers in on all of these because this is what's happening in the market as we discussed in your buyer consult. So I set their expectations, I managed their set expectations, and then I executed using what I had taught them in the buyer consult. So that is another way to help them pull the trigger. Now, I always ask, which homes would you like to make an offer on? Not would you like to make an offer, which homes? So if at the end they're giving me some resistance, like I don't want to make offers on any of them, I say, okay, well, you rated the second one we looked at a 6 out of 7. Now, why do you not want to make an offer on that one? And they will tell you, well, I think the price is too high. And I say, okay, if you think the price is too high, what price do you think is a fair price to make an offer at? Then they'll, if it's listed at 300, they say, oh, well, I think it's like worth 270. And I say, okay, well, let's write an offer at, 275 to 280 just to see where the seller's at. And then I also say, I will talk to the listing agent and see if there's any other offers, see what the activity has been at. And maybe we can go in at your 270 just to see where we end up at. And then I also guide them in the buyer consult about closing costs. So if you do need closing costs, Mr. Buyer, then we can work this in a couple different options. So what I do for my buyers is I make sure that our offers are a little bit more in your favor than they are the sellers if there's no other offers. So if you need closing costs, we can come in at list price and ask for those closing costs, but you have to be aware that the seller will be netting X amount of dollars less because those closing costs are literally them taking money out of their pocket and handing it to you in order to close this deal. Now, another option, if we're up against multiple offers, is we can come in over the ask price at, if they need 10,000 in closing costs, we say we can come in 10,000 over ask, and therefore the seller will net exactly what they're asking for. So there's another couple ways in order for you to be able to manage expectations and help them pull the trigger on making the offer. And throughout the whole process, you want to be reading their body language. You want to help them open up. If they're sitting there with their arms crossed, how do we help them open up? We build that rapport. We get them to trust us. We get them laughing. If you guys can get your clients to laugh with you, you will build that rapport very easily and help them connect with you. So for everything that we've talked about today, that is kind of what I do in my buyer consults. I highly, highly, highly encourage you guys to go on my YouTube and watch those videos. Let me put the message in the chat right now. Or did I already do it? Yeah, I already put it in there. I'll start right here. So here is the buyer consults playlist. I will keep adding to this. I do a lot of my buyer consults over Zoom now. Obviously I can't do it for sellers because listing consults should always be done at the house. So unless I had a camera crew following me around, it'd kind of be weird for me to be like selfieing myself and videoing our whole entire process. So, but I do have many training videos and training content in my binder if you're on my program, and we go over that stuff often. So if you guys have any questions, now is the time. Unmute yourselves, put yourselves in the chat, something. Let me know what you guys have experienced, what you guys have questions about. Anybody?
I just have a question.
All right.
What happens if you put in multiple offers and more than one gets accepted?
If more than one gets accepted, you guys got to remember that you do have that 10 days to decide. So if more than one gets accepted, you can just back out. Obviously, it should be happening all within a 24-hour time period. I do have a lot of buyers that do that, and they want to look at multiple properties and put in multiple offers. This is where I try to manage the listing agents' expectations too, and I get them to answer all at the same time. I want to make sure that, we do get that answer within 24 hours, because we do want to be courteous to our fellow realtors. Obviously, getting an offer these days may be a little bit more complex on properties that aren't as pretty. So if you have 2 offers that got accepted, you just let the listing agent know, hey, my buyer actually decided to go with another property. I'm so sorry. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all your diligence and getting back to me in a timely manner. Here's a cancellation. No harm, no foul. No EMD was deposited, and it's usually only happens for a day. So, but
Okay,
if your EMD has been deposited, your buyers can get that back. I like to tell my buyers, hey, what I do for all of my buyers is I give them a 10-day window to decide whether they actually want that property or not. I say, you can wake up and sneeze the wrong way and decide I want to go with a different property, and we can back out and get all of your money back. We don't have to give the seller a reason when we are in that due diligence period. And the less information you give the listing agent, the better, because if you give them details, then it just sometimes they'll question you and want more information or try to give you a hard time about getting the EMD back. But you just say, no, my buyer decided to go with a different property. That's it. When you receive a counter offer and a buyer wants to see multiple listings, would you still take them? So you've received a counter offer. This is after showing more than 5 listings. So when you received a counter offer and then your buyer still wants to go back out and see more, is that what you're saying? Okay. So when this happens, you want to, this is where managing your buyer's expectations. You say, I probably would take them out maybe to see 1 or 2 more properties, but I do it that day. I say, okay, we have a counter offer from this person. Let's go out right now. We need to answer this counter offer by 5 p.m. And I also tell them, well, there's other offers that this seller could take away this counter offer at any time. Do you want to accept this counter and then go look at 1 more home? Or do you want to, kind of just look at this one? When a buyer wants to go see more properties, it's usually an indication that they're not that into this property. So I would dig deeper and I would say, what is your hesitation about accepting this counter offer? Are you not that interested in this property? If they say, yeah, I'm not too thrilled about it, then you say, okay, what about it is making you hesitate? Dig deeper, find out exactly where their mind is at and exactly where they're coming from. And it'll really help guide you. Anybody have any other situations or questions? I went through that pretty quickly. No more? All right, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, would you counter back a seller counter? Oh yeah, for sure. I've gone back and forth. I think the most I've done is like 6 or 7. And then of course it all just falls apart because when buyers and sellers just can't agree on that many little things, it's usually just ends up falling apart. It's usually the seller that's stubborn. You know, we look at a house that has known leaks and known problems, and then we know that the HVAC is going. That's when you kind of go back and forth and you're like, wow, this seller really isn't budging. Yeah, let's put this to rest. And I think you should move on, Mr. Buyer. But yeah, we can go back and forth forever. Or I kind of explain to my buyers why, you know, you should just move forward. And usually it's little things like, oh, since we're getting 10,000 in closing costs, the seller won't pay for the home warranty. Then I explain to the buyer, hey, the home warranty, you know, isn't really the seller's sole responsibility. You can pay for it on your own. It's only, you know, $500 to $800 a year. Are you willing to lose this home over $500 to $800? That's how I would put it to them. And then we just accept that counteroffer. Like I had a counteroffer was it 3 weeks ago? We're under contract now, but the counteroffer was literally just the seller wouldn't pay for the home warranty. I thought it was a little ridiculous and tedious, but whatever. I explained to my buyer the concept of a home warranty, what it covers, why I think they should have it, and that the seller pays for it 80% of the time, but you know, 20% of the time the buyer does pay for it. So that kind of helps me move things along and just get them to accept it as is. Anything else? If comps are lower than the listing price, would you accept the seller's requested price, which is higher than the listing price? If comps are lower than the listing price, counter it with a lower appraisal blip. So here's the thing about higher prices, especially in this market. I did just have a couple Tidewaters this year. Tidewater is when the VA comes back and says that the comps are coming in lower, and I'm actually in one right now. I personally feel like a appraisal can always be negotiated later in the deal, especially when it comes in lower, because if that seller goes back to open market, the appraisal is going to come in around the same price anyways. So that seller won't be able to sell that home for the price that they're asking anyways, now that they know. If you do want to run comps and see that it's lower, when you submit the offer that is at that lower price, I would put in the email when you send that offer, here are the comps and why we don't think that the home is going to appraise at the price that your seller is asking. So when you submit that kind of information along with your offer, the listing agent can actually present it to the seller with the offer and say, hey, you know, you never know. Maybe the listing agent is dealing with a complicated and difficult seller. It happens all the time. And the seller is saying, no, I want to list at X amount of dollars. And the listing agent saying, look, here's the data. And it's saying it's not, the appraisal is going to come in lower. We're going to have to go with that anyways. You send those comps with it. Maybe it'll help the listing agent along with it too, along with that process also, and being like, hey, Mr. Seller, I told you so, basically, in a nicer way, of course. That's how I would handle it. Anyone else? These are good questions, guys. Alrighty then, I am always available. You guys have my cell phone, or just tag me in the chat if you have any questions, but that will conclude our meeting for today. I hope you guys go out there and get some more buyer consults and come to me if you have any questions, and I will be posting this video on YouTube for any of you who joined late or missed any of it. And it was good to see you guys all today, or at least see your names. No one had their camera on. All right, guys, have an awesome day. Bye.
Bye, Lauren.
Bye, Lauren.
Thank you.